on YouTube? Welcome to another video. Joining me here for a back workout. Starting off with our hybrid row here. Doing our heavy compound to get things up and running. Do the fatiguing, most intense workout first, and then break it down to hit other parts of the body. So running through these, and again, I do take my time when I warm up, so just a heads up. Editing makes everything kind of fly, but I do take, in the beginning, about a minute and a half, 3 minutes with the working sets though. And so for me, it's all about making sure I'm efficient, getting to where I need to be, and making sure everything's calibrated correctly. And that will take you pretty far in training. Know your body, know how things feel, how they move to dictate where you'll end up. So for me, I know that a certain weight thresholds that I have. So for like my row, my 275 will basically tell me how that workout's going to go. If it comes off the floor pretty easily, you've got a pretty good upper range and threshold. Now these were a little bit more rough than I would have liked in this workout, and I could tell by the 275 how it felt. In the video it looked fine, like it moved off the floor, but when I engaged, the weight felt heavier than it normally would on a good day. So it's important to kind of have those diagnostics or whatever in the back of your head to know what a weight should feel like, to kind of gauge what your performance is going to be like. And you only get that from experience, putting in time and effort, and moving a weight enough times. You should be able to gauge how you're likely to perform with your body based off of all the other patterns, sleep cycle, recovery, eating before. So if you have a strenuous day, you want to make sure that that's accounted for. But there are some days where you'll have a strenuous day and you'll have a great workout, but the next few days you could suffer performance wise, even though you are rested because of the fatigue built up from that. So that's why I kind of mentioned here, I do the most fatiguing stuff first, just because I know that will be the most difficult. And it's interesting, when it comes to my back workout, sometimes I'll switch the Avenger and the T-bar row here, just whichever one's open. But the T-bar row is a little bit more difficult just because it is more free weighty than, say, the Avenger row. The Avenger row, you can really dig yourself in. And in my opinion, when you're pulling in a system like that, it's a lot easier than something like this, which is at a higher incline. So you're rowing essentially up an incline, which is a little bit more difficult. So take with that what you will. You can always drop back on weight or reps or whatever. But like I said, I come into a workout with a game plan and I'm trying to hit all that stuff, and I will adjust if it's super noticeable. Like if I do a set and then I'm just so far off the rep expectation range, maybe if I hit 7 instead of 10, then I know, hey, something's up. Let's cut back. Let's get the rep range to come back. And then that's why I record everything. Use it on your phone as a reference. I've got a cool app that you can look back at training to see what you did last week. You can add reps, add weights, or maybe even just do the same weight again. So it really depends on, what your goals are. As long as you have some sort of record of what you've done. And videos are nice and stuff too, because you can see. But you can make those little mental notes in your actual training to let you know, hey, I wasn't feeling great coming into my first exercise, so let's reevaluate. And lately I've wanted to get more back volume in. And so the problem with your back, very strong muscle group, so you do need the rows and the heavy weights, but sometimes the cable movements are sufficient just to get a pump, get some blood in there after you've done the harder work. And there's only so much you can do to activate the lats. Most of the movements are going to be rowing, pulling to some degree, so it is a little bit confusing sometimes to decide which movements to do. So I'll always vary and update them to accomplish that goal. Moving on to upper body here for bench press, and so I'm using the football, Swiss bar, whatever, just to kind of experiment. I wanted something that hits a close grip as close to a straight bar as I could without it being the straight bar. And so I messed around with this. The mechanics are a little bit different, and there is a balancing issue just because the handle you're holding, there's so much real estate to it, and it's a little bit, I was noticing balancing issues, like I'd have to chalk up my hands, there wasn't much knurling on the bar, and then it would roll, so I had to be careful. And if that little joint, that wrist joint, is feeling unstable, it's going to affect the rest of your reps going forward. So really rethinking utilizing this movement. I just wanted to see if there was some sort of stimulus, and there was, honestly. I was getting an insane tricep pump, but it was uncomfortable to the point where it was affecting the movements that came after the fact. So in my mind, probably not the best movement to do for me, but that's what all this training stuff is. There's a lot of variety for movements you can do to kind of fit with your training style. Obviously, like the barbell movements are pretty standard, but you can deviate from there if things feel better. If you've got long arms like me, the bench can get hard when you're trying to do close grip because almost every bench press you do is a close grip bench. Or if you've got really long legs, a squat, it's just not biomechanically advantageous for you. You may do like a hack squat or a pendulum, something else that you can change. But you just have to find the movements that work well with your body and that you can progressively overload. And that's what gyms are supposed to offer, is a variety of those movements for you to be able to utilize whatever you want. And I do experiment sometimes with certain movements that don't feel well for my body, and I pay the price and I learn the lesson. But if you pick up a new exercise and you start light and you just kind of build up over a few workouts to figure out, what exactly you want to do, how you want to feel, do that. And then if they decide to, if you decide to pursue them further, or if they work well for you, keep doing them. If not, replace them with something else, or consider another movement. So I very rarely use wrist reps under 275 on bench. And so I had to use them in here because my wrist just felt so unstable, which is a sign that this movement is probably not the best movement for me. And so I had a decision to make here, basically, with, okay, well, I did some rep work, just get some extra work in. But when I jumped over to the flat dumbbell bench, which it's normally a movement I can rep on, I knew from that first rep something was off, and it just didn't feel right. Didn't feel well. I was getting a pump and activation in my triceps, and so when I calibrate, or whenever I program for these movements, it's assuming I'm doing the barbell movement. So you have to be careful with making substantial changes. And I am pretty spontaneous sometimes. I will just throw in a movement into a workout and then just kind of look and see how much weight I can do. And then the adjustment period for a new movement, at least for me though, I'm telling you, this is a weird way to say it, it's violent when I adjust to something. Like, it affects my body so much though, but the second time I come back and do the movement, it's like I've been doing it for years though. So whenever I get these ideas in my head though, it will affect the rest of the workout. So I try to not do it. I try to stick to the basics of what works. That's what I've learned over these years, and you really just have to experiment. And like I said, if you want to experiment, go in stride, do it light, get the movement patterns down, and then start adding weights. Obviously, get some gauge. Maybe throw on some weights, add weight each set to where it's reasonable, and then record that weight down. The next time you come in, add a little bit more to what you just did. Don't deviate too far from that. Then rinse and repeat for previous weeks, or for previous weeks using that weight to then progress forward on the upcoming weeks. So I would say, yeah, you're not married to any movement, but there are movements that will give you more benefit than others, especially if you have a certain training style. A good example is the incline fly here. I cannot speak today. I'm sorry. But anyway, incline fly. I used to do this with dumbbells all the time, and I was a big cable crossover person, but honestly, this thing is so perfect. You can just wedge yourself in, and the contraction is really nice. And it's just easy to kind of just set up, you throw your pin into the weight that you're doing, and kind of go from there. And so for me, it's really easy to do the barbell movements, which again, you're working a lot of stabilizers, you're kicking those dumbbells up, you're unracking that bench, and then you can just hop onto this dude and just get a quick, nice contraction, nice controlled contraction in there, and you've already done the other work of the free weight movement, so it's super beneficial here. And again, just kind of showing more tricep work. Again, the whole purpose of this Friday workout was to get some sort of additional movement and activation to the triceps, because I feel like they're a weak point of my body. And so doing like close grip, V grip, whatever this is called, push down. Earlier in the week, my first chest day, I'll do like the standard rope. I just like to do some variety and vary things so that it's not the same movement. And I find if I do the same movement too consistently, I do get those tendonitis and overuse type of things. Like, that's how quickly my body adapts though. So it will learn the movements well though, and I also want to do something that's still challenging, a little bit different, and then also, slightly an additional adaptation that I may have to deal with and stuff too though. So that's mainly the philosophy, is do the things that work, you know, try to find some deviations and go from there and see if they work for you. It also keeps the workout a little bit more interesting. So here we are deadlifting. Kind of a weird angle here because there was somebody in front, so I want to be respectful of their space. But I think this is the day I decided to kind of work up to a heavy single, which I haven't done in a while. And calibrating my movement is always super impressive, to me at least when I say it, because there's, on those good days, the weight just moves and it looks like nothing. Like that 405 looks like nothing. So I know that's one of my calibrated weights. If that moves the way that it did right there, I'm set for a pretty decent workout basically. So working up here, and again, these are all beltless, so a little bit slow there on that 495. Throw the belts on here, 545. Haven't done this in a very long time, and just slow and steady. A little bit of a struggle at the lockout, but we got it. And I knew, okay, that's we should probably stop there. So stop there, strip the 25s on each side down, and then went back to 495. And again, that belt, sometimes when I wear it, these 13 millimeter belts and the way that I'm built is very interesting. It's very, it's hard to get into position because you're literally pushing against 13 millimeters of belt there, leather and other fabrics. So it can affect how you lock out your deadlifts and stuff. Sumo, I don't have the issue because you're closer to the bar, but anyway, that's kind of the story there. Hit that 545 symbol. Monkey with the symbols is going on in my head right now. But anyway, yeah, hit that 545 single. Super happy about that. And, you know, that's good to know that we're back almost at 550. Getting that strength back and that conditioning back up. Shifted over to SSB here. And again, this is using the actual SSB setting. So pushing me forward and designed to keep you more upright in a traditional squat. So utilizing this, and I swear I do feel every bit of it pushing me forward. That's why I like this bar so much, is that you can shift the collar sleeves to different angles. You can see them up there. There's a couple holes that you can shift. You can go further, lower, but then also it's on a like a gear mechanism where you can rotate that bar further back. So the majority of the weight is either behind you or in front of you, depending on whatever you're doing. There's a goblet setting and then like a super low bar setting. So it just depends on what your goals are. Like most people, I'm in the middle ground, so I'm between the goblet and the low bar. So my squatting movements would be the SSB here and then the high bar. So those are the two middle ones that I think work really well for me. And just varying them that here. The deadlift, I used to do deadlifts after, but I was struggling so much with endurance when it came to lifting heavy. So I decided keep these squats as a lighter day, even though I'm loading up 370. I don't know why I'm doing this. I should keep the intensity lower when I'm deadlifting heavy, so that one, it's a little bit more effective workout. Not even fatigue though, but that I'm capping my threshold so that I recover a little bit better. So you really just have to kind of plan for that though. Obviously, the ideal movement that you were trying to hit the most weight on, or maybe do the most reps, you definitely want to prioritize that, unless it's some goal of yours to do a bunch of work ahead of time and then hit a PR with that volume workload or whatever. But you know, it's getting some complicated training. These longer videos I decided to do, I didn't realize how hard talking for between 10 and 20 minutes is. So forgive me, and we're only doing it to catch up. Eventually we'll go back to 2, so because these days are starting to blend together myself. But anyway, that little breaking the fourth wall there. Back to the workout. And again, I decided on 325 for my sets. That 545 took a lot out of me, and then the back off sets at 495. Fatiguing, especially when you do the SSB where it's pushing you forward. So now you're loading that lower back and making sure you're upright. You are going to be fatigued. There's just no way around it. So again, you make choices and you suffer the consequences for them. But I know how to gauge effort and to know when something's too difficult, which is why I cut back. I would have liked to have rep 375 for multiple sets, but it was kind of pushing it a little too far though. So moving on to our fluff and pump stuff. Again, all this stuff, super important, stuff you like. You know, this helps you isolate certain muscle groups that may be lagging, that may not be as activated during the main movements. You know, we've all got imbalances and stuff though, where perhaps the quads work a little bit more. If you're more upright in a squat compared to your hamstrings, you're not sitting back low bar style. And then even on a deadlift, you can You can pull very upright on a deadlift and get a lot of quad activation and obviously the glutes and hamstrings, but there's different ways to pull. And so it's going to activate things differently based on how you're built and how your mechanics are. So, you fill in the rest with these isolation movements and they feel good. Honestly, they're pretty restoring when I do them. You try to do them at moderate weights. We're not trying to hit powerlifting goals on these machines. So keep the reps high, get a nice pump, and let your body work through all those reps. This is what's going to help add additional muscle to the bone and the body. You're going to add in all this extra volume, which is going to then work in conjunction with your CNS and your strength training that you're doing, and the whole system is going to make you a stronger person. But you have to monitor your recovery. Obviously, if you're doing just tons and tons of volume and you just simply can't recover, it may be eating away at your ability, whether it's mental or physical, to hit your heavier weights, your heavy squats. Then reconsider there. But that's the whole point of training, is we're experimenting. We're trying to figure out what works. One size doesn't always fit all, but for most people, the basics are going to be the best place to go, and then you kind of deviate from there based on what your goals are. And like I said earlier in the video, gym equipment variety is great because not everyone's going to benefit from the same movements, at least in a context of a controlled environment like a machine is. Everybody can manipulate weights a little bit easier when it comes to barbells, so this is always great to have here. And you can even see behind there is other leg extension. So this is the single leg one, which you could emulate on the other one too, though. But some people like plate loaded. For me, though, whatever is easier, I'm just going to hop in, throw that on there, and kind of go from there. And then just progressive resistance going forward. Keep doing it. Keep making progress. Add weights, add reps, and kind of go from there. So let that be the message here in this video. Choose what you want to do. Make sure it works for your body. Recover from it. Add more weights. Reevaluate. Feel like I probably could have dropped some bars or rhyme there, but I'm not that creative in that way. So that's the video. Take a look at the workout. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff. And you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.